Hey folks, welcome to whatever emergency update this is. I kind of lost track of them. And as time progresses, we're hoping to get, as I said last time we did one of these, I'm hoping to get more and more out to you. I got a couple of announcements I want to make to begin with. First of all, many of you know by now that the Philosophy 1 and 2 this year, which was supposed to be in the Pine Barrens, we've had because of lack of trying to get, we can't get food, and then there's all kinds of restrictions, we're going to put it online. Now, there's something interesting about that online concept. A number of years ago, and many of you have heard me say this, even back down when we were just doing recordings and no video, is that I said this is what's going to happen, and in the very near future, and I kept saying that, and you know, my brother Jim, who will be joining us a little bit later, he had the insight to understand that, you know, this online is going to be, we have no choice. So the interesting thing about the Philosophy 1 and 2 this year is, as I worked out this class, it's not only going to be Philosophy 1 and 2, it's going to be Philosophy 1, 2, and part of 3. It's my intention to cram it solid with information, and it'll go the way of a normal philosophy to begin with partnerships and all those exercises, but I'm going to be getting deep into the temples, deep into the sensing of presence, silence, and surrender and all of that. I would even suggest, if you had your philosophy workshop, you know, a number of years ago, you might want to take this, because this is going to blow the doors off of everything else. You see, I run a class, whether it's at the Boy Scout camp in the dead of winter or in the Pine Barrens in the summer, I have to allow for people to go out on an exercise. You know, it takes them 20 minutes to get out there, and then the call-ins, 20 minutes to come back, time to go to the bathroom. You know, that's an hour and a half just in travel time sometimes, especially in the winter when they have to put on a lot of heavy clothing. But, you know, I think that this is going to be a work of art. The last one we did was absolutely amazing, and we got the few bugs in it worked out. But like I said, I'm really cramming it with information. It'll blow your mind, any of you veterans. But anyway, another thing I want to say again, and I said this last time we had an emergency broadcast, that warning prayer, that has got to become paramount in your life. That has got to reach to the deepest recesses of your soul. I mean, there's got to be a yearning there. Since I have been teaching that, we have been flooded, especially after the last emergency broadcast, and even before that, flooded with letters, emails, and text, where it saved people's lives. And I don't mean just a few. I mean many, many, scores of them. And it's just, it brings tears to my eyes to realize that, you know, people could have been dead right now if it wasn't for that, or blundered into something where they got themselves crippled. But anyway, gang, you know, tonight, this emergency broadcast or broadcast, a netcast, whatever you want to call it, update, people need the truth, realistic truth, not a pipe dream. They're buying into two different sides of the equation. There's too much sensationalism, or on the other side, there's too much minimizing. It's not about politics. It's about life and death, not inconvenience and money. Yes, that is an issue. I understand that. But every time you walk out that door, if you have a family at home and you pick that bug up, you may be asymptomatic. Is that worth killing your child for, or your spouse? I don't know. In my world, no amount of money in the world can replace a human life. And the suffering. It's like that one girl I heard say in some demonstration, I'd rather die of the virus rather than suffer one more day in my house And I thought to myself, have you ever seen people die of this? They're drowning in their own phlegm, so to speak. It is a horrible, unbelievable death where you can't even have your family around you. And that's worth a month or two of your lives? Come on, grow the hell up. We are such a poor survival risk as a society. It is pathetic. I used to have a lot of faith in modern society. Yeah, when things get tough, people will suck it up and get to work, just like our grandfathers and great-grandfathers did during the Depression or the Spanish flu or whatever else. But I look out there and I just see nothing but absolutely poor survival risk, and please do not fall into that category. Anyway, you know, there's a darkness coming. I'm going to be honest with you. I began to think that maybe this wasn't a warning shot from the Creator, the great mystery. But I still think it is. However, how many people are going to survive this warning shot? As things open up, this is a roll of the dice. A huge roll. Everything is riding on it. If we do this too early, if people are not sensitive to the welfare of other people, they're all about entitlement and me, then we're going to see a corona bloodbath. If it doesn't take place this summer, it's going to take place in the fall, because anybody who tells you they're going to get a vaccine developed before the turn of the new year is lying to you. What do you think a politician's going to do? Tell you the truth? Because he'd start a mass panic. He'd start riotings. Everything. People would go into a mindlessness. That's the only way I can describe it. And they got to be very cautious with what they say. That's why you see everything is so balanced and everything is so iffy. You got to have people telling you the truth. In fact, that's why I'm bringing my brother on later on. It's because he's right at the cutting edge of it. And he'll call a tree, as much as we may not like it. Nature does not bend to our will. For too long, we have been a society of people that kill our grandchildren to feed our children. We think we're above and beyond the laws of creation. And this right here has just brought our creation, our world, to its knees. And are we going to learn the lesson? I think not. No. Short-term memory, wow, that's going to be out the window in 6 months. Soon as a vaccine comes, it's all back to whatever people are doing to distract themselves from their pathetic lives. But anyway, am I being mean? Yeah. Anyway, I want tonight to give you a cold, hard look at things. Not just from my perspective of watching nature and the reaction of nature, because that's my main indicator. It's the way the ebb and flow, the nuances and cadences of nature kind of change, and they warn you of things coming, but it's more so what grandfather said. That man has never, ever been wrong, and that is frightening. Very frightening. But most of all, I want to give you hope tonight, because there is a lot of hope if we can pull it together. Anyway, one thing I want to say before we go on break, we have to check our systems. We should have checked them before we began, and we wouldn't be late. Right, Dave?
All things are possible, Tom.
Yes, okay. Emotional detachment. I want to stress this again. When you find yourself getting upset, angry, whatever, about the circumstances, first of all, it's like the weather. You can't do a damn thing about it. So you got a choice. You can be miserable. Your mind can create that living hell of, oh, the helplessness, the hopelessness, oh, woe is me, I got to sit in my house or my backyard, God forbid. Or you can have some fun. You know, that's easy to say, Tom. Yeah, it is. It's as easy to say as this. You ever notice how easy it is to solve someone else's problems? Like they come up to you and say, oh, my marriage is on the rocks, my job, my boss is terrible. You just look at them and say, get a divorce, get another job. Easy, right? But when it happens to you, holy crap. You got the burden of the world on your shoulders. You can't think straight. You can't see straight. That's why I say for a tracker, the worst case you'd have to be on is tracking a member of your own family. You'd be too emotionally involved. You'd be second guessing. So what I'm asking you to do, when things start getting bad, how that's possible, I don't know. But when things start getting bad in your mind, back off. Pretend you're someone else that you don't even know. And have a conversation as this detached person. You'll get a good laugh, I'll tell you. You'll get a real good laugh because that's the best way of looking at things. This is not going to last forever, folks. Yeah, it's going to take a couple million people out of the equation. Fortunately, you may not be one. Or God forbid, if you're one and you have to go through the hell that a lot of these people that were on ventilators are going through. Diminished lung function, blood clots, oh God, the list is endless. Anyway, we have to go check our systems. The chat room was open to a point where we can only get 500 people in it. And I know we're well past that now. So my brother's coming on in about another 20, 25 minutes. And any questions you have, we're going to collect them. We're going to run them by him. What do I know? I know what grandfather taught me. I know what nature teaches me day in and day out. But I'm not a scientist. Yet I am. I'm a tracker. Trackers are scientists. It's an art, a science, and a philosophy unto itself. A tracker doesn't believe a damn thing until the tracks tell you to believe it. Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll get right back together, gang. Hey folks, welcome back. One more announcement that I wanted to make, and especially if you have kids. Coming up on May 9th and the 17th, there's a program that probably no doubt my first tracker student, John Young, I met him when I was, just 2 years after grandfather left. He and I are going to do a program together. In fact, he's viewing tonight on skills and storytelling, which is going to be really cool. And the person, Rick, who kind of absorbed Coyote Track's program and made it pretty much throughout the United States now, is their organization called the 4 E's is putting it on. It should be a lot of fun. John and I have worked together on and off on different things, and this is our latest project together. So it's again on May 9th and the 17th. It's going to be geared toward kids, but you know, you're certainly welcome to watch. But thank God for Rick. He's doing a great job with reaching kids all over the place, especially online. Now, let's keep going with this. I said I want to be honest with you because I want to take it from just a cold, hard look at what's going on. No emotional involvement. Looking at it as a tracker, a fence walker, which is another way of saying a scientist. First of all, life will not get back to normal for a long, long time, if there is a normal. The new normal will be vastly different than what we once had, because we cannot keep going the way we're going, where it's going to be one pandemic after another. That's coming anyway. please, like all the great philosophical leaders have said, embrace impermanence. Nothing in this world is permanent. Nothing. But people buy into that lie. They think that this and that and the other thing, relationships, everything else is going to last. It's not. It's not. And people get upset when that is taken away. Some of them get suicidal. Embrace impermanence. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be all over the map with this because these are notes that came to me since the last class, and I just jotted them down in no order. You know, we have this kind of love-hate relationship with modern medicine. We really do. You know, and I have to ask people, where do you draw the line? You know, we're not above and beyond the laws of creation. You know, everything else in creation, every animal and plant has to obey the laws or they go extinct. They die. It's that simple. But for some reason, we don't. We can get beyond it. We think we can conquer nature and control it and everything else. Boy, have we been in for a wake-up call. But I ask you, you know, we look toward modern medicine, ancient herbs and everything else, and people say, I don't want modern medicine. I'll do this, that, and the other thing. What part of you uses modern medications? While the other part, you don't believe in the doctors and the scientists about the severity of the pandemic. Thus, you pick and choose what is convenient to justify your beliefs. And this is ridiculous. You know, you drive a car, you fly in an airplane, but then something comes along, a new medication that works, and so it's got 2% side effects. Think of the 95% of the people it helps. And what's the difference between that and something you gather out of the wild garden? You're still processing it. So again, a lot of responsibility lies on your shoulders. I know Jim, like me, we've been working through the nights, the last couple of nights, to bring this to you. Research. That's your responsibility. And like I said before, thank God we got that publication that Phil puts out called The Belly of the Beast, because that man just pores over journals and news that's reputable and distills it down as a scientist and spiritual point of view. Cuts hours out of my time. You have got to be like a tracker, a fence walker. Don't believe anything until you researched it. Please, you fall into these traps because of 2 or 3 pseudo whatever decides they're going to say something when the rest of the people are saying, in the know, are saying, no, it's not going to work. This is the important one, gang. Please get this. We're starting with food shortages. Farmers are being forced to kill chickens, hogs, whatever, because we can't process them. Our processing plants are testing positive pretty much across the board. The truckers, a lot of them are sick. And how long before this really starts taking hold? One of many reasons besides worried about your folks' health and coming to that philosophy 1 and 2 was Celeste must have tried for days to try to get enough food for the class, all the distributors, and we're limited. We couldn't even take care of 1/3 of the class if we wanted to. And then, of course, a couple of days after I made the decision of putting it online, which I'm happy I did because now I get to play. I get to really push the limits, so to speak. The governor shut us down for another 30 days, you know? But how long before demonstrations move to wholesale riots? When people start really getting hungry, when things start getting very scarce, it's what I say to every class. What extremes will you go to protect your family, to feed your family, to make sure they have potable water? And you got another 1 million+ people out there going to do the same damn thing. It boils down to money over human life, but eventually, if this really shortage takes hold, money is going to be useless. You're going to see a hamburger go for $40. I mean, it's not that far-fetched. But what's going to happen with the riots, to almost the anarchy, is home invasions. We're going to see that starting here. Breaking in entries. It's begun already. Prepare for it. This is where grandfather said, and it's so obvious, the children of the earth must run to the wilderness. Right now, your home is your wilderness. You can't go and run to it. You're not prepared, many of you, but you should be after this one. But all people want to do is return to life as normal. But to return to what? And of course, the big question, why? Why? Why would you put your life in jeopardy? Your family, your friends? Motives. When someone makes a statement, deeply research their motives, their politics, their pocketbook, their power, and don't buy into following sheep. Any wonder why grandfather called society the mindless gray masses? It's so obvious. I ask myself, what legacy have we left for our children and grandchildren? Do people really care, or is that just a term that falls flippantly from their lips? I love you, son. I love you, daughter. I love you, granddaughter. I love you, son. I'm beginning to think that those words are meaningless. Because how could people do what they're doing today knowing that they're ruining the future of our children and grandchildren and those beyond? Use your head. If the sign says, "Do not swim, alligators," do you then buy into entitlement? Possibly kill someone else in the process of saving you? There was a lady in South Carolina that just got dead from an alligator. I know the trough where she went swimming. Signs all over the place. Alligators. People fish there. They throw bait in the water. There's huge gators. And she went in entitled. This is water. I can swim. She almost took another life with her. Bad enough. But we're doing stupid stuff like that. Gators. Beware of dog. You know, it's endless. Will we pick and choose what we obey? Or what we think we're super people we can avoid? Come on. Question everything and weigh the conclusions. Panic is not tolerable. Intelligence or intelligent fear is a better one. I call it temple intelligence. Once you gather all the facts, whether they're balanced or not, Ask yourself deep inside, viscerally, is this true? And if anything comes back to you that is at all feeling that something isn't right, or an apprehension, or an unease, then that's a damn sure indicator there's something wrong. It's your job to research it. Call it temple intelligence. Temples of the soul, to be exact. Deep inside, all of us, you know the truth. God knows. The Creator knows. But so do you. It's like that old saying, people see your deeds, God knows your motives. And so do you. Now as food becomes harder to find, especially meat and flour now, think outside the box. Lentils, beans, protein-rich food, dried, non-perishable, oatmeals, you know the dance. You're not going to get your favorite Kobe steak. It ain't going to happen. But you don't have to start chewing on shoe leather. You may not like the taste of something. Develop it, because that might be all you have, as long as it is nutritious. Remember, please, the ancient scouts planned for the worst. They trained for the worst, and they expected the worst. And if it didn't happen, they were that much better, that much more advanced, that well entrenched in mastery. And remember what I said about the sacred game. Play it. Run scenarios in your mind. Make them real. What if somebody was breaking into your house right now? What will you do? Or all of a sudden, every feasible drop of electricity stops. No phones, no cell phones, no emails, nothing. Your first inclination, but for most people, what happened? Let me run out and see. That could get you killed. Use your temple knowledge. You know, the more we get into this, I learn from watching people. I tell people, I learn more from my mistakes than I ever do from my successes. And I'm learning from watching the goings and comings of society. It just baffles me. I have come to the conclusion that people in general are a very poor survival risk. If they ain't in a crowded bar with a beer buzz on their lips, a greasy slab of meat on a bun, and playing some game, then they are starving to death in their minds. Safety, security, and comfort this society lusts after, not just craves, lusts after. Safety, security, and comfort. To me, they're euphemisms for death. You think right back now to a time you were totally alive, totally there, totally awake, walking on the beach with that person you love in a rain, sand in your crotch, whatever. And you were not safe, secure, or comfortable. You were on the edge. You were living. Throw safety, security, and comfort out the window. Have some fun. Survival to most people is a thermostat set at other than 72 degrees Fahrenheit. God forbid if I should sweat or have a chill. Or worse yet, missing lunch. Oh, that's a big one. And they call themselves battle-hardened survivalists. You see them in demonstrations. But you take away their quasi-military garb, their bulletproof vests, their firearms and knives, and cast them out into a difficult survival situation with just a pair of shorts on, and they're going to die. They're not survivalists. They rely on their guns, their machinery, their high-tech equipment. Up here, that's where they're survivalists, armchair. Get them into a real dirt situation without all the equipment. That's the people you want to embrace, the people who are real survivalists, who've practiced their skills, who knows how to go back into wilderness and make it home, and where your only concern is gaining too much weight. They only live the game in their mind, not in physical reality. And then the other issue, the mask. Oh my God. Research it a little bit. First of all, the mask is not 100% effective unless you're wearing a CDC Class 4 containment suit. The mask doesn't fully protect you, but it protects somewhat others. When I put on a mask, it's not for me. It's in case I have asymptomatic virus and I don't want to give it to anybody else. It puts up another layer of protection. When you go out without a mask, you're saying, I don't give a damn about you. You know, people complained, oh, you can't smoke in bars anymore. Well, of course. That secondhand smoke kills kids, people who don't smoke. But that's a permanent rule. The mask, it's going to go away. But you look at it, the mask protects others, but why do people not wear it? Oh, it's an infringement on my rights. Entitlement. I think people that go out with a mask and somebody gets sick and dies should be hit with voluntary manslaughter, because that's what it is. Or somebody that spits on somebody that has it. Oh, and a mask makes them look weak and vulnerable. And they become vocal and belligerent if you make them wear the mask for the protection of others. How sad is that? That people don't care enough about each other or love enough of each other to at least give the other person a chance. You know, we are, I call it the hallmark of dictatorship. I call it common enemy, which just, you go over into a third world country where the people are starving, they're dying of diseases, they have nothing virtually. They've got a tyrant of a dictator that wipes out his own people, that starves them. You pick the countries, they're all over the place. And you know what happens? The dictator says, no, it isn't me. It's the United States. It's England. It's Canada. It's so it draws everybody's attention. You got to watch it. That's what's going on now. The common enemy is the virus, soon to be the scientists and doctors, and God knows what else is going to fall into that list. You know, I had my apprehensions as I was going to read this to you or not, but I think I will, and then we'll go to break and bring my brother on. Forgive me, because I was in a tirade when I wrote this. I just simply call it a ranting rage. We have been in a stay-at-home executive order for just over a month, and now people are getting restless. We are beginning to beat the number of those infected with coronavirus and subsequently the number of death it has caused by staying home, covering our faces when we're out and following the direction of governors and leaders, backed up by science and statistics. Not mindless panic, by the way. Yet, there are those out there that are demanding to be set free, to go back to work, have life return to normal. Not going to happen. There have been demonstrations, road blockages as protesters of the stay-at-home order begin to accelerate their road to insanity. It's beginning to look like mob rule once again. What bothers me is the reasons that people want to end the lockdown in spite of what the leaders and scientists are saying. They want to get out and back to work, but I have to ask the basic question as to why. Why are they so damn determined to put their lives in danger and possibly countless others because they can no longer tolerate the stay at home? Would you venture outside your house if there were snipers every 200 yards with you in the crosshairs? Would you do that? Would you be that dumb? Not much difference. Are their lives such shallow mess that they can't stand being in their own homes with the people they supposedly love? Just to get out, they are putting their children's lives in danger? Are they that insensitive to do they even love their children at all? And willing to sacrifice the lives of their families and friends because they have this drive to get out and away? Most people are so shallow they can't stand being alone. Because in aloneness there is no distraction and they must face and live with themselves. Oftentimes realizing that they hate themselves and their lives. The old saying, wherever you go, there you are. Out there is distraction. It keeps you from having to think, to make the right choices, what you want to do. What your heart tells you to do, the vision to follow. As if the confinement of their homes and close proximity of their supposed loved ones were not enough, there still remains no excuse for demanding to possibly lose everything. To get back to work? Why? Because of income means that the value of money is more important than human lives? Or they need the distraction of work so they can no longer have to face the reality of what and who they've become day in and day out? Do they need to get out to the bars, the movies, the sports arena to further remove themselves from the pathetic emptiness that they are feeling? And yet, now, they have the time off from working. Have they really done all the chores and things they promised themselves they would do when they had the time to do it? Or have they just been bullshitting themselves? I'll be done with this soon. I'll get some sanity back in here with my brother. A lot of these words did not come from me. They came from grandfather a long time ago when we had this discussion. In a recent newscast, I heard one young lady say, I'd rather die of coronavirus than be confined to my home for one more day. How stupid is that? She would rather die of coronavirus, which is such a horrible, lingering death, rather than face one more day? A month, 2 months isolation is far better than a horrible death, which lasts forever. Or to be crippled the rest of your life where you can't breathe, you can't walk, you can't even think. I'm so overwhelmed and horrified by the stupidity, the insanity of humankind. I have just absolutely lost faith in it. That was the biggest blow for me. I used to think people could rise up above it, could care about each other. But no, it's just the opposite. Especially when people get under stress conditions. Survival, oh, it's stressful, yeah. In many ways, it's like tracking a lost person who has gone into shock where they discard a full canteen of water on a desert because it's too heavy. Or cast aside an overcoat in frigid weather because they're sweating a little. Or walk into a tree or off the side of a cliff, not even realizing they do so. They're so wrapped up in shock. This is very much like the consciousness of humanity today, where they will strip the market shelves of toilet paper and towels, but buy things they don't need and can't possibly use in years. Hoarding, no matter how insane that hoarding, it runs rampant in people today. They don't know what to do. They also lie to themselves in that they believe that when they get free of the restrictions, they will go back to normal. What they don't realize is that there's no going back to normal, for it's overdone, but people can't accept impermanence, life, and living, thus growing upset and almost suicidal. They delude themselves that they are going to do all the things, travel far and wide, when deep inside they know damn full well that they will go back to the ruts they have lived all the other years. It'll all be the same. It all boils down to that they are living a lie, and a distraction would be far better than having to live with themselves and their pathetically shallow existence. These are the pathetic souls who have no vision, no hobbies, no love outside themselves and the rut-ridden routines that they suffer through every day. They never ask themselves the frightening question, am I really happy? Because they know the answer, and the answer, truthfully, would only bring them more despair, more hopelessness and helplessness, and a deeper depression than what they are living in now, or rather what they have chosen to create for themselves. Life is a choice, a series of choices. Heaven or hell, it's in our minds. I'm almost done, gang. Sadly, these pathetic souls are so lost and searching, will never find themselves or the truth. They constantly try to run away from themselves by finding distraction in any form, only to find that wherever they go, there they are. They do not live in the sacred now. Their minds are constantly yearning, judging, labeling, and criticizing the world around them, and even more so, this harsh judgment is directed inward, creating a cycle of despair that can't easily be broken. They never live lives that they had always wanted, but were forced to live the lives that were dictated to them, either out of necessity or what other people wanted and expected of them to become. Insane fear is what seems to be driving people now, and in the end it may very well kill all of us because of that selfish greed that so permeates the thinking of humankind. If all this is not bad enough, I better not read that. Another obvious lesson in all of this madness is what grandfather said. And the children of the earth must run to the wild places, never to return to the places of humankind. It was so obvious that he was talking about diseases, for viruses, even bacteria, mutate enough they could potentially last for years, if not decades, waiting for any human stupid enough to go back to the cities and suburbs. So many lessons in all of this, but no one seems to be paying attention. All people care about is getting back to some sort of routine and distraction that they no longer have to face themselves. How very sad, how very insane, and how very, very deadly this choice is going to become. Gang, there is a storm brewing. Dark, red, billowing clouds. It may not come tomorrow, may not come in the beginning of summer, but it is going to come. Are you going to be prepared? Are you going to buy into the games your mind plays? I'm starving. All I had to eat was bread and beans. You're not starving. It just don't meet your sophisticated taste buds anymore. We are so poor survival risk. God, gang. I'm going to get my brother on here in about 10, 15 minutes. Give us a break. And Jim will come on. And like I said, he'll introduce himself. He's right on the cutting edge of all of this, and he is going to call a tree, just like I did. I know I got people mad at me out there, but what I'm trying to do is tell you to think. Think not here. Research. Don't buy into the flavor of the month. Don't buy into any politician. Don't buy into anybody with an ulterior motive. Research it. fully. Make your own choices. And most of all, you realize that your mind is the most powerful tool on earth. It can be a living heaven or a living hell. It's up to you and your choices. If you can't do anything about it, you can make yourself miserable, cry and moan and hopelessness and helplessness and depression or have some fun. Enjoy it. Listen to the stories, if you were around, from your great-grandfathers that talked about the Spanish flu or the Great Depression. Talk to those folks, or the big wars when people were dying and things were such lacking. That's their memories. That's when they were so alive. Safety, security, and comfort is a coffin of flesh. Seek intensity. Really come alive. It all takes place here. You know, I'm asked all the time, how come some people live and some people die in a survival situation? It's odd. Guy that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, it looks like, whoa, yeah, big survivalist, is the one who perishes. You got a little weaselly sort of a guy or a gal, man, they just go right at it and flourish. Here. That's what kills them. That's what's killing a lot of people out there. And unfortunately, people like you and I can become collateral damage to their insensitivity, their hate. Let's go to break. Hey folks, welcome back. I can be as subtle as a brick through a plate glass window, but look. Don't look at the stuff that pissed you off. Look at what I'm saying. Read between the lines. It's coyote teaching. I've brought you hope. Think for yourselves. Your mind is your greatest tool. Research everything. Become a tracker. Embrace that warning prayer, please, that has saved so many lives to date. We're on uncharted territory here as far as all the modern things we have at our convenience. We're not much better off than the people that were first facing the Spanish flu back in the 1917, 1819. And it should be a wake-up call that, we're not above these laws. We cannot snap a whip and say, create that vaccine, stop this it doesn't happen that way. But we're so caught up in entitlement. And if something isn't convenient, oh my God, reevaluate. If you're clinging to the notion that things are going to get back to the way they were, boy, are you wrong. Accept it now. It's impermanent. It's gone. You may get shreds of it, but plan now. Do like the scouts. Train for the worst. Plan for the worst. Expect the worst. And modify it. Like I said the other day, you look at the animal, the coyote. It was a creature of the Southwest. Mankind came in. Now that coyote's all over the United States, Canada, and South America. Why? Because it adapted. It adapted. You get the snail kite, who eats nothing but snails, and you start getting habitat loss. They can't change their diet. They don't know how to. They're on their way to extinction. You've got to become like that coyote. And you start thinking now. Think this, the game. What if your job no longer exists? What are you going to do? What alternatives do you have? I'll give you the best piece of advice. Make your avocation your vocation. That's what Thoreau said. Think of something you love to do. And then make it happen. Make it happen. Think outside the box. Like grandfather said to me, he said, grandson, the only thing that stands between you and mastery is you. And he's damn right. So believe me, from the earliest age, I developed a passion that bordered on an obsession with this. I wanted it so bad, more than I wanted to breathe. And if you want something bad enough, you're going to make it happen. I have faith in you. All you got to do is change that up here. Don't ever tolerate an I can't, or I've never been good at this. My God, you have such potential, each and every one of you. I don't care if you're old and in a wheelchair. You still have lives you can reach. Still have people you can teach, lead back to the earth. Now, I'm delighted once again to bring my brother on, Jimmy. I'll let him introduce himself, and then as he's winding down the introduction, everything, please bring your questions in, because as soon as they start to peter out, we're going to call it a night. And by the way, we're thinking of running another one of these in about 4 weeks or so. Reason being, as I said, dark clouds are coming. And we're going to know pretty soon what's going to happen, whether it's going to be sooner or a little bit later, but it's coming back. Jimmy.
Tommy.
Dr. Brown.
Well, let me introduce myself. I'm his baby brother. I'm 3 years younger than Tommy. And what was cool, growing up, he really taught me a lot. And I'd have to say my love of science really came from Tommy. He would take me out into the Pine Barrens, show me all sorts of cool things. And I decided to go one level lower than Tom. I'm a microbiologist, so the world of the tiny, the world of the small, the invisible world that's there. It's absolutely incredible. And I went to Rutgers. In fact, I got 3 different degrees from Rutgers. My dad worked there, and he took the job there so he wouldn't have to pay for college, because that came along with the deal.
A Scotsman.
And, yeah, that's a Scotsman in him. Anyhow, I went for Rutgers, microbiology, a bachelor's, master's, and PhD at the Waxman Institute of Microbiology. And I actually met, in fact, my father introduced me to Selman Waxman, the one who really started off with antibiotics. Streptomycin was his first one, made New Jersey famous. So anyhow, I went there, and I was one of the very first AIDS researchers. In fact, the 2 people you hear about all the time on the news now is Dr. Robert Redfield, who is with the CDC, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. And I knew them both growing up. I was a mere child then. Dr. Fauci is 79 years old now. But I actually, and as I said last time, I actually rode in an airplane with him over to the International AIDS Conference in Amsterdam. And every other AIDS conference every year, I'd attend his lectures. We even had lunch together a few times. I'd have to say, in government, I've got a real problem with a lot, as Tommy says, there's so many lies out there. And if there's 2 people, if you listen to them, I really trust what they say, Anthony Fauci and Robert Redfield. And I hear just there's so much trash out there, and Tommy's right. It's just this whole thing with politics. I went on to become an assistant commissioner of health for the state of New Jersey over the public health and environmental labs. If there was an outbreak, my guys were the ones who were growing it, and that was my job before I actually came back to become assistant commissioner. And running down outbreaks, that sort of thing, it was basically AIDS back then and other things. But this one coming down the pike, this is scary. This is so scary. And if there's a message I want to give you, it's that whole distance thing is so important. Right now, this virus is one of the most infectious viruses that's out there. And like people think, okay, that guy's coughing or spluttering, da 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 da. Well, that sort of stuff, if you're 3 foot away, that kind of goes away. But this is different. This virus is so much like you don't realize it when you're talking to someone. The virus is actually out there and can get you right at 6 foot away because it hangs out there in the
Yeah, you
in
were
the
telling
air.
me in a supermarket, for instance, that virus can hang in the air for what, the 10 hours?
3 hours.
3 hours.
Three,
That's,
and it varies. But let's say if you go to Walmart, somebody's coughing, or even just they were talking or whatever, that's there for 3 hours. So it mixes around, and sure enough, you come along, breathe it in. That's why this one, so many people got it and never knew they had it. And the horrible thing about it is you don't necessarily get symptoms. Some people get the virus and shed the virus, and they're fine. They little kids, for example, many of them will actually get it, and it's like a little hey, you got to stop coughing like that.
my studio.
Yes.
I want to infect
but-
everybody here. I can do it through the television, too.
Oh, wow. That's
Or
why
the
I'm at the
computer.
other end of New Jersey, further up north.
Yeah, really.
But the thing is, the virus, this one, people can be shedding the virus and you're clueless. And until the trouble is, they really sat on their hands. And when they should have been developing these tests, they waited to the last minute.
Yeah.
And then, of course, some of the tests were great. Others were horrible. There was really a lack of leadership at the very top of our country. And it's a shame because it's really hurt us. But the thing I want to tell you is, please, distance is important. So stay at least that 6 feet away. And then the other thing is, when you're going outside, in New Jersey especially now, they want you to be wearing masks. And this one is the surgical mask, and it's really only a one-shot deal because you really have trouble disinfecting this thing. These we got from Guatemala. My youngest daughter is from Guatemala, and sure enough, you can put it on, and it's made out of cloth. So the cool thing is, put it right in the washing machine. Get a few of these, you wash it. Soap and water kills that virus. It dissolves the outside part of it. What's the very outside part of that virus? It's actually on the way out of your body. It steals your cellular material and wraps it around itself. He's basically your cell membrane is what he's wearing when he comes out of your body to infect other people. But as I say, that 6 foot is really important. And when you go outside, the new thing that just came down the pike, when you go outside, believe it or not, so much less chance of infecting yourself than when you're inside. Like when you go into Walmart, what they're doing now in many places, they'll bring the food out to you or they'll deliver it to your house, that sort of thing. Leave it on your front steps. That whole kind of deal. And then when you're out, and I always think about this with the Pine Barrens. Right close by, we walk our dog. We just have a new puppy. And the new puppy's 4 weeks old now. Cute little thing. It's a border collie, and our older one's a border collie. Well, I take him out into the woods. It's great. I take him down a path there. There's no one around. There is really no way of getting the virus that way. But I take this along in case someone comes by. I'll put it on. But if you're out in the Pine Barrens, you're not going to need one of those, but have it there in case someone comes by, they want to talk to you, that sort of thing, and keep that 6 foot at least. You don't need to get up close and friendly. You can talk from a distance. But if there's one thing, that's the way you're not going to get it. The terrible thing in hospitals and nursing homes, I think I told you last time, with nursing homes. I was on the board of United Methodist Homes of New Jersey. I was on their board for 10 years. And in nursing homes right now, they believe that up to 60% of the people there are already infected with the virus. And it's a great place if you want to get infected and die. And also prisons. There's a chance I might actually, I teach online. I teach totally online now all over the place. I was teaching for University of Alaska at Fairbanks. Any further north, I joke around, say that I'd be teaching polar bears. I teach for the University of New England, City University of New York. Pardon me?
The tracker school now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're teaching here, aren't you?
Oh, of course. Yes,
okay.
yes, of
so
course.
So add that to your...
And look at the distance. I'm in the northern part of Central Jersey. Tom's more in the southern part of Central Jersey. He's really in the Pine Barrens proper there, which is wonderful. But I just wanted to warn you that people talking can transmit the virus. That if there's one message I want to leave you with tonight, you need to know that. They don't need to be coughing on you or anything else like that. Just talking to someone, stay 6 foot away.
Yeah, am I right to say, though, that mask is not for you? It's more for protecting the other person?
Absolutely right. When you put this on, you're thinking about everybody else. You're stopping them from getting it. If you cough or anything like that, this will stop the majority of the splutter. But it'll still go around. And in yourself like this, yeah, it's going to protect you a little bit. But the truth is, it'll go in and around. This is not like what they have in the hospitals. And in the hospitals, you know what's terrible? The person going in the hospital, and the very end of it, they would get what's called a cytokine storm. And this is the one that totally shuts down their lungs completely. And it's so much, it fills with fluid, so they can't breathe. And that's what does them in. This cytokine storm that's there, their body, their immune system overreacts. And instead of fighting the virus off, it fights your own tissue and kills your own tissue. And that's what happens. You die. But the thing is, they're showing now that not only does it hit your lungs, it hits your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, your intestines, your brain. You know, when they say, oh, he can't taste anymore, he can't smell anymore. Well, where does that hit? Your brain, your eyes, your nose, and your heart and blood vessels. Now the number of people are having strokes. So it's really, this is one nasty organism. But here's the thing also. It's not just, I mean, people can have it. They don't even know. They don't even have symptoms.
That's the scary thing to me, you know, the asymptomatics.
Yeah, and that's the majority of them. These people walking around, they're healthy as a hog, but they are shedding that virus. And unfortunately, the older you get, the more susceptible you are. You know, the Brown brothers here, we're high up on that list. And if you have things like, hey, I'm an asthmatic, and sad to say, I'm a diabetic. I've had heart surgery. I mean, you know, hey.
Almost lost your leg.
Yeah. They put me at the top of the list there as far as, you know, if I go out someplace, there's a darn good chance I could get the infection and it would do me in. Now, the younger, the better. But the thing is, this whole thing with the cytokine storm, that's when that starts, it is so difficult to save their lives then. And that's why, you know, and the other thing, you know how, and I don't know if you've ever been there, when you've had a parent die and you go in to say goodbye to them in the hospital, they don't allow you in anymore. They're dying all by themselves. They won't let family in. I mean, it's probably one of the saddest things I've ever seen. And now here's the trouble. What we don't know, there looks like there might be a good chance because it does make antibody. But will it be protective antibody? There's still just, when Tommy says, you know, a month from now, we're going to know a heck of a lot more. That's absolutely true. Because a month from now, we'll know whether those antibodies are protective antibodies.
Jim,
So what?
question for you.
Sure.
You believe, like I believe, that we're in for another resurgence, right, in this?
Unfortunately, I believe so.
Yeah.
I hate to
That's the
say that.
it's going to be. I think it's going to be like the Spanish flu, where it kind of petered out in the summer, and then all of a sudden that was it.
And
Millions died.
and and this one, they already say this one's probably going to be so much worse than the Spanish flu, and that took like 3 years to get through that whole thing.
Yeah.
It killed more people than World War I, and it was at the same time.
Yeah.
So this one, the chances are it coming back in October are really good, unfortunately. And we probably won't have a vaccine available at that time. That's maybe they think the best we're going to do might be in and around January we'd see a vaccine. I mean, they're trying like mad all over. But it's sad to say it's slow. A lot faster than it's been in the past, because I honestly think year and a half we'll have that vaccine, and maybe even a year, but it takes time. And then having something that works against it, that's I hope we're looking at things there that are starting to look good, but we don't know until a month from now. We're going to know a heck of a lot more.
You know, I think very seriously that what'll determine whether we get slammed a month from now is how selfishly entitled people feel they are, and just go out and infect anybody, they unknowingly, of course. But hey, let me clarify something, because a lot of people say, I took you into the pines and, you got interested in microbiology. Let me say to you folks at home, for those of you who have been there, the Pine Barrens is not like some dramatic wilderness like Yosemite or Yellowstone. The Pine Barrens is pretty much flat. We got hills, 120 feet above sea level, but it's mainly pines, scrub oak, blueberry. But the Pine Barrens, there's something about her. It forces you to look close. We get people from up north in the deciduous forest. They see deer here and there and all this kind of weasels and foxes, turkey. You get into Pine Barrens, there could be 10 deer standing 10 feet from you. You wouldn't even know they're there unless you're highly aware. So your awareness begins to go from the majestic to the minute and back again. And that's what intrigued Jim, is that we started out, as much as grandfather hated it, as with magnifying glasses along the pond edge. And then we got a kid's microscope. I remember you and you were looking at everything. But the Pine Barrens really forces you into introspection. I find this, of all the wildernesses I've been in, that there's something about her, that part of Earth Mother, that just, it forces you into this deep, profound introspection that I can't find other places. I'm not saying other places like Yosemite and the Muir Woods and stuff like that are not, oh my God, awe-inspiring. But you got to go into the Pine Barrens with a different mindset. Anyway, go ahead. Is there any questions coming in, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Let me get some. Keep going. I'll get some.
Well, what I wanted to say about Tommy and the Pine Barrens, he's right. It's very flat there. Every pitch pine tree looks like the next one. And he would find all these hunters would go out into the Pine Barrens, trying to hunt deer and what have you. They'd get lost, because when they got off the trail, I mean, they would be doing circles and circles, and Tommy was the one who would find them. That's where Tom's fame really started in. When I was a kid, what I used to love, Tom would take me out there, and he said, "Now you just sit there, Jim. Don't move." And Tom would slowly stalk up on deer and smack it on the backside. It would take him a half hour to get up there, but he smacked the thing right in the backside, and the deer didn't know what happened because he so carefully did it. The other thing I hated, but Tom told me about this all the time, when people were marching on the almost running on the Appalachian Trail and things like this. they would be just walking along almost like they had blinders on. They wouldn't see anything. And Tommy taught me, you know what, Jimmy, you go out there and you sit and you just listen. And sure enough, I mean, you could see the animals start to come out and that sort of thing. The guys who were out there and they were going there, you know, with the blinders on, and just they had to get down that trail, like they saw nothing.
Point A to point B.
Pardon me?
Point A to point B.
Exactly. Tom
Nature's gymnasium.
Go to point B and sit.
Yeah.
and it was so true. And I learned so much from that. And I learned about nature so much from that. It was really great. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm waiting for Dave to print them out.
Well, let me go through some things that everybody says, well, how long does the thing last? This thing lasts an incredible amount of time. Would you believe on metals, like doorknobs, jewelry, silverware, can be up to 5 days. In wood, like furniture and decking, 4 days. Plastics, like bus seats, detergent bottles, milk containers, elevator buttons, 2 to 3 days. Stainless steels, refrigerators, pots, pans, sinks, some water bottles, 2 to 3 days. Cardboard, shipping boxes, 24 hours. Copper, there's something about copper that does them in, 4 hours. Aluminum, 2 to 8 hours. Glass, up to 5 days. But here's the thing. Those things, even though they say, oh, okay, it can last 2 to 3 days on plastic, while it's there, it's dying. And like, it might last, yeah, I can culture the thing 2 to 3 days down the road, but that's not enough to cause the infection. When you're talking, you know, somebody's coughing or talking, that remains, when that's in that little bubble that's going out, it's almost microscopic, but you're breathing it in. That's where it is. As far as you get a box in, a cardboard box, yeah, they say it lives 24 hours. But the truth is, your chances of being infected are almost nil. But where you're going to get that is talking to somebody. And obviously, and that's where I think Tommy's right. You wear these things, and like if you're going out on a trail and all the rest, you don't need to have this on, but I'd have it right there in case somebody comes along, and especially, let's say, if you're in New Jersey or someplace like that and they see you without one, that could be a problem. So have one available. Excuse me.
Stop coughing.
I'm glad I'm in a room by myself.
I just look at it as if you don't wear the mask, it's a total disrespect for a fellow human.
Exactly.
I got a couple of questions here. You know, this is the first one from Susan. It's such a hot topic. And, you know, are vaccines safe in general? I'm going to go on with more of the questions. You know, I kind of wish we had the vaccines back when the Native Americans, 88% to 90% of them were dying off of smallpox, because we'd had a vital tribe today. But are vaccines safe for people with immune suppression medication for autoimmune disease? What criteria would you determine if it's a specific vaccine is safe? Now, I would answer that by your temple knowledge, you know, go to the temples of the soul. If you got thoughts on that, I go either way, you know, go ahead.
Well, the truth is, we fight off these viruses with our own immune systems. Basically, we get infected, and then our body, the first one we make is IgM. That's kind of like the first one out there, but then we start making IgG, and that's kept, we have these memory cells that remember it. So if we get infected again, boom, it immediately starts making more antibody, and sure enough, it kills it off. Well, by having, we get, like they'll make a vaccine where by getting it injected, we'll actually make the antibodies against it. So if we do get infected down the road, we'll be all set. It'll start making antibody right away and save us. Now, yeah, there are people that, and this is where you got to go to your doctor and talk about it with the doctor, see what that recommendation is. If you've got a problem, that's where the doctor will look it over, and it's herd immunity that usually protects us all. Herd immunity means that we're the herd, and let's say we get a virus, enough people are, let's say they get immune to it. So let's say something like polio. The vast part of the population is protected from it because they got the injections and stuff. So sure enough, that herd immunity stops it from, okay, that person might get infected because they didn't get injected, but they're not able to get it to that next person because they did have that protection. And so,
do you
go ahead.
remember? I don't know if you were too young. I remember in school the little sugar cube for the polio.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We had about 8 people in our little school that had polio. That was sad.
Oh, yeah. I had an opportunity to meet Dr. Sabin and what's it? Dr. Salk and Dr. Sabin.
Uh-huh.
It's cool that I met that whole other generation back then.
Yeah.
And it's cool that now, I can talk about that with my students.
Yeah.
And let them know, hey, here's what happened back then. Like when we were kids, we weren't. Where did that all come from? The polio? It came from swimming pools, and that's where Franklin Delano Roosevelt got it. He got it from swimming. And sure enough, who was it? The kids who were most active got it because they were the ones in the swimming pools most of the time and all the rest. So it's amazing. And one thing, like one stupid little thing, the salt in the ocean helps stop a lot of infections. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between freshwater and saltwater.
Yeah.
Is by going in the ocean, you're actually better off than having a swimming pool.
Remember that World War II study Dad told us about, that the burn victims from that went through the salt water healed quicker than those that were transported onto the ships?
Yep.
And so many other things. Here's another one here that a lot of people are asking me, and Jim, I like this guy calls you Jimmy. This girl calls you Jimmy.
Yes, you bet.
Cool. Will we see mutations in this coronavirus?
We already have.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the one that's out there today that's really causing these deaths is already a mutation from the original that started it all.
Right.
This one is so much worse, and that's unfortunately the coronavirus and his neighbors, his other coronaviruses do that. They actually will go through, they'll mutate, and sure enough, it'll select for the more infectious. So we're seeing that now, and hopefully that's where a vaccine, you know how we have the flu every year? Well, there's a bunch of different strains there. Some guy, someplace, sleeps next to his pig, and the influenza virus of the pig and the human swap nucleic acid, and sure enough, we have a whole new strain that goes out. And what they do is they try to make it so every year they come up with a vaccine they think will work with most of the strains.
Rolling a dice.
But this year it's like 50, 60% only. It's not that great. So that's the disadvantage in something like that.
Here's a good one here from Susanna. And this is hard to answer, because each person's going to be different. How many SARS-CoV-2 microbes does it take to start an infection in a person? It depends.
We're not sure.
Yeah.
It's on that. It can be just a few, but that's why you do need that certain amount to get it going. Because a lot of times with your immune system, it comes in there, and if you get the right immune cell comes in, a macrophage, for example, some of them come in, destroy it before it has a chance to get anyplace else. Others, it gets to the right one at the right time, and sure enough, once it gets in there and it goes active, one cell can produce thousands of these viruses, and it goes right through your whole body. So as are most viruses, it usually takes a certain amount to get it going. Mm-hmm. So we're not sure what that is yet.
What the magic number is, because there's so many individuals. Here's 2 pressing questions here that is interesting. From Mary, can we control the spread of virus if we get the majority of people to wear cloth masks?
To start out with, once what I'm hoping is if we get antibodies made so that we get that herd immunity going, that's what happened to most of those viral outbreaks. It's that herd immunity that eventually just mellows it all out. But see, this is a brandy new virus and it's highly infectious. So it's going to take a while for us to get there. And we don't know, people say, oh, well, it's like the flu and stuff in the summer. It doesn't do much, but it's still, or the cold virus. Yeah, it's still there in the summer, but it's not as bad as it is in the winter. And remember the other thing, in the summertime with us, it's winter in Australia. So it keeps going back and forth, back and forth. So it's scary.
Here's one that, is on a lot of people's mind with the exaggeration. This is from Steve. How deadly is it? Are the death rates exaggerated at all?
No, not at all. The terrible thing is because they don't have the tests, they couldn't definitively say, that death was due to that. And it's like, now if you go in and you're on a respirator and you die, you're pretty well sure that's what caused it.
But if they can't test it, they can't say that, right?
Right. But what they're doing now is they were looking at everything along the trail there and said, you know what? All those symptoms and everything, and they were on a respirator. Yeah, that's what they probably died of. But now they can actually go back, and because they can test to see if they had the antibody, if they have the serum left from that person, they can go in and test it and say, yep, they were positive.
Another one. I'm sorry to go through these real quick, but I know they're pressing questions for people. This is from Martin, Ingrid, or whatever. Is the use of ultraviolet light effective against the virus while it is in the air or on surfaces? This is a big thing. You see a ceiling point. Yeah.
Yes. It's while it's in the air and that sort of thing, but don't get near it, because what UV light does to us, it causes chromosomal aberrations. It breaks our DNA apart, and it can cause cancer and all sorts of good stuff like that. So if you were out of the room and you had these lights on, and so, it'll take care of your room, but don't go back into that room with the lights on.
Yeah.
And that's why I have to say, unfortunately, without getting what the president said was so dangerous. The same thing goes with, Clorox. When I was an AIDS researcher, I was literally growing the AIDS virus. I was in a biosafety level 3 facility doing that. And sure enough, I was carrying this one tube that had concentrated AIDS virus. And I happened to, it slipped out of my hand and I went to catch it. It broke and it cut me above the wrist, below the lab coat, right there on the skin. I had gloves on and I had a lab coat on, but it cut me right there. And I'm saying, that's concentrated AIDS virus. I went right over to the sink. We got like 8 bottles of Clorox in. And I just grabbed one and opened it up and poured it on. And I realized, nope, 1 to 10 dilution, 1 to 100 dilution is so much better than the concentrated. So I immediately poured half of it out, filled the bottle with water, poured it on myself. And you remember my firstborn, Billy? Yeah. We delayed his coming about. I was the only one doing the testing in the state of New Jersey at the time. I was an AIDS researcher there, but I used my serum all the time. I always put it in with everyone else's because I knew within a year I would have, converted within a year, but I didn't. Luckily, that killed me. But a lot of people said, you know how harmful that was to your skin? Hey, as far as I was concerned, the hand was expendable.
Mm-hmm. There's one here. This is a good one. Anonymous. Can I reuse N95 masks if I leave them sit for 72 hours in a paper bag? Will the virus die if it gets on the mask?
Slowly.
Yeah.
It's like if there's virus on that mask, no.
I would suggest gasoline and a match, right?
Yes.
That'll take care of it. Or soap and water.
But the truth is, if we're not talking about a healthcare worker, if we're talking just in the public, I highly recommend going with the cloth masks and keeping the distance.
Yeah.
And right now, stay away from a place like a Walmart.
Yeah.
If you have a little place where there's very few people going, or they bring it out to you, something like that. Especially New Jersey right now, we're number 2.
Yeah.
New York is still number 1. But you know what it's doing? It's going right across the United States now. So the middle of the United
There's new
States.
hot spots now coming up.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going down in numbers, but still our numbers are horrible.
You know, this is a good question from Isaac. If I need to go into a store, should I wear gloves? And if so, are cotton gloves okay to wear and then put them in the washing machine to use again?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you think you're going someplace where, well, you know, where I think of it is like a New York subway system, which I wouldn't recommend going. You know how they have these poles there you can hang around? I would have a pair of gloves on to do that, because I can't see, you know, everybody's touching that, and then you touch it and you rub it your face.
Right.
Man, that's a horribly good way to
wearing
get it.
gloves in a subway, it's stuff to pole dance, you know?
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, you don't need gloves in a. Well, truth is, I'd stay away from those big stores.
Yeah.
Go to little stores or have your food delivered or something. You know, I have to say, that's the one cool thing about Amazon. You know, it comes to your doorstep and they'll leave it on your porch for you.
A couple of real quick questions. Is the storm you talked about a major threat of death from the virus? Is that the big one?
Yes. Yes. That's when, and it's usually more elderly, but not, you know, it's horrible. And I don't know if I told you this, Tommy. There's of course, with the name of James Brown, a very popular name, as you know. And what happened is yesterday or the day before, a school principal named James Brown died, and everybody knew, hey, you know, Dr. Brown is a professor. And no kidding, I had all sorts of people calling up to find out if that was me. And it was like, wow, it's horrible. But, you know, he wasn't that old. He was like 50. So
here's another one here.
Just in case everybody wants to know, I'm 67.
Here's another one here. You know, I used to have an instructor. This is funny. He used to tell me, Tom, everybody is asking you to do an advanced skills class. And he kept harping on it for almost like 6 months. So I thought, I'm going to put an advanced skills class in. 4 people showed up. I asked him how many people wanted. He said 4. Everybody wanted. Here's one here. Is there conflicting data that just surfaced about asymptomatic shedding? Any insight into this?
Yes. And yes, they know that just talking, just being close to someone, if you're within 6 feet and they're talking to you, because normally with talking, you know, people don't think, oh, they're not, even, you know, if somebody sneezes on you.
You know, it's going 28 feet.
Yeah, right. And you can see it, you know, it gets on you sometimes, that sort of thing. But talking, I mean, that's scary. And sure enough, they've showed that the little, you know, they've actually done, you know, the studies where here's 2 people talking, and sure enough, they can see the little things just staying out there, going all over the place.
What was scary for me is I saw on CNN, they had this guy just talking in a moderate voice, and they had this whatever lit.
Right,
and you could see those particles going 6, 7, 8 feet.
Right.
You know,
and when you breathe it in, it goes on your mucous membranes, and then it gets dragged into your system.
What I was saying here about the asymptomatic shedding, the conflicting data. Now, how much data is being compared? You know, one paper comes out that supports somebody's belief system, and there's 700 that don't. You know, what's the human nature going to be? Well, this is supported by what I believe in. You know, I don't understand. I didn't see. Well, I've been working on this more than I've been doing anything else, but any conflicting data.
I think what you told everyone, you got to use your brain and you got to do your research.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd hate to say it, but as far as, and I don't want to get, I went to China to teach them how to do testing for the AIDS virus with the World Health Organization when I was younger. And I realized, and this isn't just China, it's a lot of different countries, where they don't always tell you the truth. They hide information. And I have to say, the United States of America, there's been a lot of that. I think I remember a president telling me on the news, oh, there's 7 cases now, but next week there'll probably only be 1, and then it goes away all by itself.
Yeah.
Well, over 1 million people infected in the United States that we know of right now. I think it's a much higher number.
Yeah. This
In
is
New
from
Jersey,
Alyssa.
especially.
I work as an ER nurse in Northern California. We're seeing a lot of sick people who have all the symptoms, but the testing negative with a nasal swab. My gut feeling is that these nasal swabs are not accurately diagnosing these folks. What is your thoughts on how to accurately test for this virus? We're also seeing employees who are still testing positive a month out and are still symptom-free. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, let's take the symptom-free, and they're testing positive. There's someone who could be spreading the virus. It isn't causing a disease in them, but they have it and they can shed it. The other ones where the tests are not the tests, it was a real problem. They brought out the test too quickly without researching it. It was a last-minute thing because at first our country was really trying to play it down and not do anything about it. And everybody else was, I know with the AIDS testing, in the state of New Jersey, when I was an AIDS researcher there, when it first broke out, I was the only one doing the confirmatory test in the entire state of New Jersey. And then they had it so that it was the federal government specified exactly how it was tested and as it went out. And then places like Roche and at the time, it was Roche Biomedical at the time. They actually hired me to become a director of microbiology for them because they knew I knew how to do the testing.
Yeah.
So sure enough, all the clinical labs had it and all the rest. But so when they were testing for AIDS, it was very accurate. And because they did it right. This one, it really came out haphazard. And this whole thing about, well, let all the states do what they want thing is horrible. That shouldn't be. This should be coming coordinated from the top.
And at least, a test that we know that works, to follow that protocol.
Well, they've now eliminated some of the tests because they realized there were real problems with them.
Oh, yeah. Wait, there was one here I saw. Hey, let's do me and Jim a favor here. Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll get back. Is that good with you,
Sure.
Time? All right. Hey, folks, thanks for bearing with us. I got to rest my voice. Jim's got to take care of his puppy. All right, 10 minutes, okay? We'll get back together. Hey gang, welcome back. There's a few pressing questions here that I want to get into before we finish the program tonight. And I really hope it's been an eye-opener for you. Like I said, both my brother and I are straight shooters, and we're so tired of all the conspiracy theory and people leaning to, oh, this is nothing, to people leaning toward, this is going to be a nightmare. And it has the potential of being a nightmare. Let's take the way of the spirit out of it. Just common sense is going to tell you there's going to be a resurgence, and prepare for it. This is the second part of Alyssa's question from earlier on. I had a nursing home patient who had all the symptoms, tested negative at the beginning. 2 weeks later, she tested positive finally. My question is, at what stage are current testing via nasal swabs actually accurate?
My experience with that is the trouble is it depends who produced it. And I would bet that first time it should have been positive.
Yeah.
So the fact that it wasn't could have been, just a bad testing, or somebody who did the testing really didn't do a good job of it.
Right.
One thing I want to say before we go on any further, I am going to make sure this paper, it just came out today, and it's entitled Coronavirus Transmission, Where the Virus Goes in Your Body and How It Is Spread. I've sent it to all my students, and I'm going to send it, Tommy will have it sent out to all of you. It's a good read, and it's easy to understand. And I think that kind of thing. The other thing is, if you have a question, do send it to Tom, and I will try my best to research and get answers back to you as we know more. I think, as Tommy says, a month from now, we're going to have a lot more definitive answers. A lot of my things where I say we're not sure yet, a month from now, we will be sure. So I'm hoping that'll be a help. Okay, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The other thing is a month from now, if we plan another update and you come up with a blank screen, we're out of here. Anyway. Here's one here. I know this was years ago for you. Have you seen the movie Pandemic? And if so, how do you feel and think about the producer's approach and predictions? I'll tell you something. The movie that struck me is Contagion. And we're right before that point in that movie where people started to riot and grab food and went berserk, and then all the guy that played the character that, was selling snake oil, so to speak. It's going on in the internet all the time. But you saw Pandemic years ago. I'm talking about Contagion. But how close do you think they came to that?
I did see it. I liked it. It was, especially what's been going on. That was that's the thing. What you're saying is every few years we get some kind of an outbreak. I haven't seen anyone this bad, this quick, that we're seeing now, but I think that was a pretty good movie. The other thing is I want to tell you about myself. For years, I've been almost 40 years in the New Jersey Public Health Association. I'm a former president, and I was actually on the American Public Health Association as the representative from New Jersey for a number of years. And right now, we're asked all the time. In fact, the governor's office of New Jersey has been very much linked up with us and the health department to find out about, our opinion, because we have a lot of good people that have been there, done that. So we're trying our hardest on this because every aspect of government is right now trying to do their best to try to get the answers out.
Causing a panic. That's the thing.
Exactly.
They're running a tight fence there, because if they, they don't want to cause mass panic. Here's one from Sandra, who's a longtime tracker student. They're telling us to wash our hands numerous times a day. Because we inadvertently touch our faces, should we also be washing our faces at the same time? I think they did a study where it was 26 or 3,600 times we inadvertently touch our face through the day. What's your thought on that?
I think that's a great idea, because think about it. If you get it on your hands, and you disinfect your hands, soap and water is wonderful. It really is. It does the trick. And then I think, hey, if it's there, wash your face. It's a great idea. Now, if you're going into a public restroom, you got to think about what you're doing, because if you turn off the knobs with your hands, you've just put things back on your hands.
Yeah.
So, you might have a little towel or something you use, or a disposable. That's a better idea. But I think, boy, wash your face, your hands, and your face. But simple soap and water, believe me, let me tell you about, you can use all these harmful chemicals on your hands and your face that, they do an excellent job of killing everything. The trouble is, you have what's called your normal flora on your hands and your face, and actually on your insides. And that normal flora, you don't want to, it really keeps the bad guys out and the good guys there.
Yeah.
So that's why soap and water does an excellent job, because your normal flora kind of stays there. And you're not, that's the trouble with in many kind of nursing homes, hospitals. If they're disinfecting their hands and their skin so much, they can end up getting
Worse
all
off.
these other
Yeah.
infections. So soap and water is great.
The other I saw the great thing on YouTube that Celeste showed me, and it was so simple. A guy had a greasy frying pan, put water in it. You see the oil and fat floating on the top. He took one drop of Dawn, and the thing went. And that's
Yep.
essentially what the
Yep.
casing on that Corona is a lipid, fat.
Yep.
Here's another one, and it's a good question because it's tough. Are there any supplements can help us armor ourselves against getting this, like zinc, for example? And there's a worrisome part of that.
Yeah, I would say right now, because of that whole thing, where at the end our immune system can actually, you don't want to enhance your immune system. It might actually hurt you, because at the end, all of a sudden, if it goes wild and it starts attacking your own body, maybe that's not such a good idea. And things like that, like zinc. Now, I don't really know about zinc, what it's going to do, what it's not going to do. I'll research it, but I don't think that's a way to go. As I say, stick to basics,
Yeah.
simple, soap and water. We're great to go.
I've seen this so many times. You get a wild edible medicinal plant, and like was in Central America for a while, and I knew this plant was medicinal when concentrated. I also knew it was highly edible, but when I went to take the tea, I never touched it. I only smelled it, and my temple knowledge just went no, and I will obey that, because if I had taken that, God knows what would have happened. And that happened to me so many times that's what I do when I supplement or anything else. You start taking it and you listen to your insides. That's now here's one here. I don't want to get political here because there's so many conspiracy theories about this. I heard one, this is just a way of killing off the old people in the country so we don't have to take care of them. That's one of the latest. And this is from, of course, Anonymous. There are so many anti-vaccine people that are posting information about how the big pharma companies have zero liability and safety. That's very true because of the rules. What is Jim's opinion about this and the involvement of big tech and big pharma like Microsoft getting involved? Now, let me say this, that I forget who it was. I think it was Roosevelt, said, create a problem, instill a fear, and have a ready-made solution. He was also the man who said, this war is getting old and tired, meaning the Second World War, let's quit. I don't even know how to answer this, but I look at statistics, not the 2,000 people that died from something, but the 500,000, 2 million people that lived. We tend to pick and choose, and that's like, we need an advanced skills class. Yeah, do your research. That's the only way I can answer that. Any thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree with you entirely. Do your research. And if you're looking for something on when it comes to science and medicine, well, if you go to the journal called Science, that's one of the best in the world. If you see it published there, it goes through a pretty rough process to get there. And Nature is another one. Those are two of the big names out there, and pretty much if you see it there, it's gone through a vigorous...
Are you poo-pawing my research I did for Lancet? Is that what you're saying?
Good. Lancet's good.
Yeah.
But
I got published.
Yeah, but you want to have, so that you have done that kind of research that's out there, and see.
Well, you remember the big scandal that went on with bogus papers and stuff being published. That was
Oh,
a
yeah.
slap in the face.
Yep.
Let me see. There's one more here. Oh, does getting a regular flu vaccine help against all this other stuff?
No, but I highly recommend it because it mutates a little every year, and this way, hey, it keeps that virus away. But this one, hopefully, when they come out and you do have a vaccine, do yourself a favor, take it, and because this one is so scary.
Yeah.
I mean, this is worse than 1918 flu pandemic. This is the worst one they've seen in centuries. So
Yeah.
this is a tough one.
All right, Jim, we're going to have to wrap it up, but I'm talking for Jim now. We love doing this for you folks. We wanted to be honest with you. I wanted, as Jim did, to bring you hope through knowledge, through spirit, and make the right choices, do the research, don't cling to anything, impermanence. Embrace that viscerally. Nothing lasts. Nothing. And safety, security, and comfort are just another way of saying death. When you're so alive, you're on the edge. That's when you're living. And make every moment count. Don't worry about the past. Don't think about the future. Right now. Right now, everybody's pointing fingers. This is that. Hey, okay, let's move forward. It's doing no good to figure out where this thing came from or who's to blame or anything else. Pick ourselves up by the bootstraps, as my dad used to say, and get going again. And gang, God bless you. Remember that prayer of warning. Please internalize it. Please. It will save your life. Just pay attention. Jim, thank you, bro.
Hey, thank you.
talk to
Mom
you
and Dad
tomorrow.
would have loved this.
Yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I got a lot to talk to you about coming up for the next
One
session.
thing I just want to mention on the way out, the picture you had of the Pine Barrens there, that's a very safe place.
Oh, yeah.
Because being there, going into the woods, I can't tell you what a wonderful experience that is.
It's
And
the Central Park of the megalopolis.
Yeah.
Everything from Boston to Washington, D.C., and Baltimore and Philadelphia. We're right in the middle.
You bet.
Going to have to fence it off. All right, gang. Thank you so much. Good night.